Well, I think that in his last couple of weeks, we were really running a lot of things through him because Jimmy wasn't here yet. And now that Jimmy's here, look, Jimmy's one of the best players in the league. He's proven it. As soon as he got here, we started winning. And so we're going to run through Jimmy Butler and we're going to run through Steph Curry. And so what that requires of JK is to be, settling into a role to support those guys. And that's slightly different. And that's just something that he's going to have to adapt to.
Jonathan Kuminga is finally set to make his return Thursday night against the Sacramento Kings. Now, I led with that Kerr soundbite because there's been a lot of discourse about integrating Kuminga back in fit. And, the nasty comes out in the fan base. And that's where we're at today when it comes to NBA Twitter and sports talk. So much of it is taking these hardline stances and then dying on that hill regardless. So if you were anti-Kuminga 2 years ago, some people still want to stand on that hill even though he's gotten so much better in those 2 years, right? And I think we all understand the course, the path that it's taken Kuminga to get to this point. But I wanted to lead with the Kerr soundbite because to me, Kerr continues to communicate with Kuminga through the media. And that represents that I don't think behind closed doors, the communication is that great. And that's no surprise, right? And that's not the first. Coaches have done this since the beginning of time. It's not a huge deal, but it caught my eye. Like he's still trying to talk through the media to Kuminga. And if they had the relationship that you'd hope, I don't necessarily think he would have to do that. Now, when it comes to integrating Kuminga back into the fold here of this winning new look Warriors team, I'm not as much concerned with the basketball fit as I am with the psychological fit for Kuminga. We understand this is the stretch run of a contract year. Again, we also understand how he's had to fight for the opportunity and the chance to be a key cog in this. He's away for 2.5, 3 months. The winning happens. And again, it's a psychological issue more so than I think a basketball fit. And I think, logically, Kuminga can say to himself, hey, if we continue to win and we have a long playoff run, it will take care of itself. I will get paid, right? But at the same time, I think we all understand in his heart, he may be feeling like, hey, I got to get mine. I got to show what I got to showcase because this organization, it has not made it easy for me. I shouldn't say the organization. Kerr hasn't made it easy for me. Now you bring in another superstar and pay him. So I know the logical thinking, should take precedent, but it's easier said than done. But I also want to go back to something that I brought up when Jimmy first arrived. The beauty of the big three, this big three, is they only care about one thing right now. I know Steph with the 4,000 threes, but ultimately, Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, they don't care about their stats. I don't think they care about individual accolades at this point. They just want to win. And when your three most important players are all on the same page with one goal, I think that can help a lot of these other type of issues. And I also think that at their age, with their experience, they understand this emotional, this psychological thing for Kuminga. And so I think they're going to help ease that, right? Now, as far as on the court goes, listen, Kuminga's always been a natural cutter. He's always had very good timing, cutting off the ball, and we know he's a finisher. And so I think he immediately slots in as this second side attacker, whether it's in the corner or in the dunker spot. And when you talk about Jimmy operating as the hub in that mid-post split action type of stuff, not only does he command the double team, but I think one of his best attributes is he generates a bigger window for the guy catching the ball. Sometimes it's just a beat. Sometimes it's a much bigger window. He does it with his eyes as well as ball fakes. It's nuanced in live speed, but I have the advantage of watching the tape the next day, right? But, Jimmy will put his shoulder down, get to the middle of the paint, and he'll hold the defense, whether it's like the corner, the wing, or the dunker spot. He almost never looks where he's going with the ball, and he'll hang in the air a little bit longer and kind of like show the ball somewhere else and then flick it to somebody, right? And what that does, it's like a quarterback. It's like a veteran quarterback holding that safety in the middle of the field, right? He never stares down his target. Draymond, Steph, take note. I think if there was one skill that they could learn from, there's plenty of stuff they can learn from each other, but he's very good at doing that. And so he's going to buy Kuminga these windows and these extra beats when he catches it on the second side, on the weak side, in the dunker spot for JK to operate. And we know he only needs a split second with that nuclear athleticism, right? But I think, so much of this talk has been Jimmy and Kuminga and like, what does that look like and how does that fit? What maybe is getting left on the back burner that is even more interesting and intriguing is, what does Kuminga look like with Quenton Post out there, right? We haven't seen him with the stretch big. That was before Post broke the rotation. That was the concept with Vucevic, right? It was like, hey, what does that do for Kuminga? That's going to unlock Kuminga even more. Well, Quenton Post looks like every bit as good as Vucevic at this point. Let me slow down. We can all agree that to not go get Vucevic was the right move, considering how Quenton Post has looked. But not only, does he have a hair trigger release from 3-point range, right? It's legit. Like, guys, you're starting to see Big Klingon was selling out to him the other night against Portland, right? Teams have to sell out to him. You can't leave him out there. He's that good of a shooter, but not just that, he's a passer. He knows where and when to make the pass. And so the Jimmy thing is going to be fine. I think he's going to feed Kuminga just fine, and they're going to play off each other. But with Post, opening up the paint, and for Kuminga, it's just going to make Kuminga even more efficient offensively. I really don't have much concern. The other part is, where do the minutes come from? We talked about the Guy Santos thing, and Kerr had brought that up. Well, we still got to play Guy. As soon as Kerr said how good Guy's playing, he's had a couple rough games, right? But I think we all understand and assume like the minutes are going to come from various role players, some from Guy, some from Moses, right? I would like to see some of them come from Draymond, because, now you have a front court of Post, Kuminga, and Jimmy. And you can pick the two guards and however that works. And that's not that's not like, hey, like Draymond, that it will rest Draymond. We've talked about Draymond playing the 5 and how long this is sustainable and how that can hold up through a playoff run. Well, one way to make it more sustainable would be to lessen his minutes right now in the regular season and just slot Kuminga into that 4 spot. I don't know about the 5 spot, but you play him along Post, right? And you've seen how Jimmy and Draymond have figured things out very quickly. I don't see why Kuminga can't do that same thing offensively with even a more effective with the way he finishes, right? The question would be defensively. We know how Draymond's been so good since the trade defensively. And, he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think that's going to go to Mobley, because Cleveland is the best team in the league. And I think part of these awards go with record, which I don't have a problem with. But if Kuminga can rebound and defend the way we know he can, then I think that can incentivize Kerr to sit Draymond a little more and let him charge his battery. And we've seen him do it. I say we know he can, but it hasn't been a long enough stretch. It's not who he is yet as a player, but we've seen glimpses of it, particularly in this last stretch of basketball before the injury, right? He was giving you 6, 7, 8 rebounds a game, and the ability to defend. Now, I don't think who can guard up as well as Draymond? You can make the argument Draymond guards up, meaning like bigger players, better than any player of this generation. Maybe Marcus Smart as a guard or somebody like that. But, so I'd like to see if they can rest Draymond for the playoff stretch and give Kuminga some of those minutes. And then the last part, but before I get to that, Underdog. You know the deal. Use the code Alchemy to get a 50% bonus on your first deposit up to 1,000 credits. I've gotten hot. Just like the Warriors, I've gotten hot. I've run off 3 in a row. And my strategy has been, I watched the first quarter and a half of play, and I see how things are going. And then I take live picks for the rest of the game, and I've been hitting. For instance, in that Portland game, after the first quarter, it was very clear Buddy and Anthony Simons were hot and in rhythm. And so I saw what that number was, and I took those picks. And so it's a great way to support the channel right now if you haven't already signed up, and look for my picks. I'll start to tweet out my live picks as well on Twitter and post them on here. But Underdog, click the link in the description. It's a great way to support the channel. So the last thing, I had to run the little teaser on y'all, is obviously, how does he look? You know, because typically I wouldn't be concerned, right? If it was the typical timetable for an ankle sprain, I don't even think it would be on my mind. But since it's taken this long, is there a mental hurdle for him to overcome? Is there a physical one? The timing is, you know, he's going to be in shape. At that athlete, at that type of age, it's not going to be conditioning, but timing is something that's very real on a basketball court, specifically with the Warriors and the way they run their offense. But I'm just curious to see mentally, you know, is he as aggressive? Is he confident? Is he going to go up and try to punch on people? How is he moving? Does he trust to push off that ankle? And, you know, my hope is that they've taken such a long time for this, that they've waited for him to be fully 100% on. That's what they've said, right? They want him to be all the way confident, 100%. That's why it's taking so long. So hopefully there's no remnants of the ankle, and it's not in his mind, and he's not showing it in his body. And we can keep stacking dubs now with this new weapon. I'm excited, man. I'll be back with the breakdown of this Kings matchup and Simba's return. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.